The original movie in the series 28 Days Later was a game changer. It had zombies that could sprint like Olympic athletes. Before 28 Days Later, most zombies were slow moving and were only scary because of sheer numbers. When you manage to stop one, there will be 10 more shuffling behind, ready to take its place. The success of the movie led to the release of 28 Weeks Later in 2007. Fans then had to wait almost 18 years for a follow-up, and boy oh boy, is this an amazing follow-up. The writers, Boyle and Garland, used the time skip to their advantage. The story picks up nearly 3 decades after the initial outbreak, and both the world and the virus has changed dramatically. One of the first things you will notice when watching 28 Years Later is that some of the infected aren't the same mindless runners we remember from 28 Days Later. The rage virus has had 28 years to mutate in the decaying remains of Britain, and boy has it been busy. The film introduces new variants of the infected that add a whole new layer of danger to the survivors. Let's break down the types. There is the first generation infected, or the first ones. These are basically the original rage victims, the ones infected in the initial outbreaks. They follow the classic formula. They are extremely violent, fast-moving, very bloodthirsty, but still essentially mindless. In 28 Years Later, many of these zombies have been roaming around for decades. They are the baseline zombies of this world. Still terrifying, yes, but they are not the only zombies in the world now. They are also the slow lows or crawlers. These zombies are slow and low to the ground. They crawl on all fours, dragging their swollen bodies through the mud and grass. And they are big too, and so disgusting. They pose little to no risk if you see them coming. Very easily avoidable. Since they can't easily munch on humans, they literally eat worms. That's how they've lasted this long, deteriorating over the decades and becoming these crawling horrors. Finally, they are the alphas. These are literally and figuratively the biggest addition to the nightmare roster. The alpha is an evolved infected that is larger, stronger, smarter, and far more dangerous than the average rage-filled monster. The alpha is the apex predator of the rage ecosystem. They even lead and coordinate a pack of other infected almost like a tribal chief or a pack leader. Alphas have a level of self-control and cunning we've never seen in the infected before. They still can't speak, but they can organize and are also viciously aggressive. These alphas are fast too. The existence of alphas suggests that the rage virus can mutate to enhance human physicality and pack behavior. The virus has essentially forced a kind of primal social structure onto the infected. Another interesting development in the movie is zombie reproduction. This is something I never imagined could happen. Spike and Isla, two of the main characters in the movie, encounter an infected woman that is heavily pregnant. Isla helped deliver the pregnant zombie. The crazy part is that the newborn baby is healthy and born uninfected, completely human and virus-free. The question now is, how can an infected mother give birth to an uninfected child? Dr. Kelsen attributes it to the miracles of the human placenta. He is basically saying that the virus did not cross from the mother to child in utero. This is definitely a superficial way to describe the science, but the main takeaway here is that life always finds a way, even amid the rage virus. The baby represents something totally new, possibly the first child born in the UK from an infected parent. The baby is a rare miracle. She is life emerging untainted in a wasteland. The baby also contradicts the isolated island community's belief that nothing good can come from the mainland. They would have to rethink their assumptions. Maybe the rage virus hasn't completely destroyed the future. Maybe there are ways forward, a new generation that could survive or even be immune. At the core of 28 years later though, and why I love this third installation to the franchise, is an emotional story. The narrative is driven by a 12-year-old boy Spike and a sick mother Isla. I will not drop any major spoilers in this video, so if you haven't watched the movie yet, don't worry, you can keep watching. When we first meet Spike and Isla, they are living in a small community island. They are cut away from the mainland where the raging infected roam. Spike was born into this world, and at 12 years old, he's never known anything else. He is a true child of the apocalypse. He is part of a new generation that has grown up behind quarantine lines, training with bows and arrows instead of going to proper school. His mom, Isla, is suffering from a mysterious illness that has left her bedridden. No one knows what's wrong, and without real medicine or diagnostics on the island, her condition is a ticking time bomb. The personal drama sets 28 years later apart from the older movies. In the first movie, 28 days later, the protagonist Jim wakes up in a world already gone to hell and basically stumbles from one disaster to the next and forms bonds with fellow survivors. In 28 weeks later, you can argue that the emotional core is the family, but the film shattered that family rather early. Dawn abandons his wife in the opening and later kills her when he's infected, leaving the young siblings to fend for themselves. These first two movies had emotional beats, sure, but the emotional relationships weren't the main focus of the movies. It was mostly about survival. 28 years later is different. It's essentially a coming-of-age film wrapped in a horror movie, with Spike's journey to save his mom at its center. There are a lot of things I want to say about their journey, but it will be impossible to do without spoiling the movie. I will make another full-length video on the movie in a couple of months. I just watched the movie yesterday and decided to make a short video to highlight what I love about the movie. For those who have watched the movie, we can agree that Spike and Isla's story is what separates 28 years later from action-focused zombie movies, including its own predecessor 28 Weeks Later. Where 28 Weeks Later was relentless and often hopeless, 28 years later gives us space to care deeply about its characters. The mother-son bond here is the heartbeat of the film. It's no coincidence that many reviewers found themselves more invested in the quiet second half of the movie than the adrenaline-packed first half. Don't get me wrong, the first half with Spike and Jamie's mainland hunt is very interesting. It's like a mini Last of Us adventure meets the road. But it's the second half with Spike and Isla's journey that elevates the film into something oddly universal. It reminds me about family and loss. By focusing on Spike's love for his mom, the movie taps into a relatable human experience. The fear of losing a parent, the desperation to save a loved one, the pain of saying goodbye. These themes would be touching in any kind of movie, but in a zombie movie, it's revolutionary. Instead of just using characters as devices to move the plot, 28 years later asks us to deeply feel what they are going through. It's similar to what made Train to Busan stand out. The film paired zombie mayhem with a powerful father-daughter relationship that left me teary-eyed at the end. The horror in 28 years later is also anchored by the parent-child relationship. For Spike, Isla is not just someone to protect like we see in so many apocalyptic stories. She's also his emotional anchor and motivation. And for Isla, Spike is a reason to push on as long as she can. By the end of the film, Spike has gone through a lot of growth. He is no longer just the little boy from the start. He's seen the worst the world can throw at him and has come out the other side fundamentally changed. This is classic coming-of-age arc stuff wrapped in a zombie narrative. From here, if you haven't watched the movie, you can just give it a like and subscribe because there is a little spoiler. Not major, just a little. At the end of the movie, Spike returns back to the island just long enough to drop off the baby and leave a note for his father. In the note, Spike says he is not coming home yet and that he will return when he is ready. Spike is effectively saying, I can't just slip back into the old safe routine after everything I've seen. I need to find my own way. By leaving the baby with his community, he ensures she will be cared for. But Spike himself chooses the unknown mainland over the relative security of home. This decision continues the coming-of-age thread from the film's start. Spike is rejecting the sheltered life he's known. It's like he's saying, I passed the test of going to the mainland with Dad for a day. Now I am going to truly explore what's out there and figure out who I am beyond just being my parents' child. For Spike's character, this is a satisfying end to this chapter. He has agency and has grown, but for the plot, it's practically a cliffhanger because as soon as Spike is out there on his own, the Jimmy cult intercepts him and we are left with a ton of questions. The film doesn't show any conflict between Spike and Jimmy. It ends right as Jimmy greets Spike and welcomes him into their group. We are left wondering, what does Jimmy really want? How will Jimmy react? Will he try to follow Spike? And what about Dr. Kelson? Will he feature again? What we know though is that the next film will be titled 28 Years Later, The Bone Temple. Most likely, Bone Temple will focus on Spike dealing with Jimmy's cult, and Kelson and Jamie will re-enter the story in some way. From what I can see on the web also, it seems like Jim, the original protagonist of 28 Days Later, will also be returning in the Bone Temple. We might learn what happened to Jim after the first outbreak. How did he survive all 28 years? The open-ended final act of 28 Years Later paves the way for the Bone Temple by introducing new story threads rather than concluding them. It also changes the game. For most of 28 Years Later, the primary antagonists were the infected. In the last minutes of the movie, it shows that the next chapter's antagonist, or at least key players, will be the cult of survivors. It is similar to how The Walking Dead shifted from zombie danger to human villain story arcs. I will be looking forward to the Bone Temple. I trust Boyle and Garland to come up with another interesting movie, and I would love to hear your thoughts too. Did 28 Years Later live up to the hype for you? What do you think of the ending and what are your theories for the Bone Temple? Until next time, stay cool, stay fresh, keep living the good life.